Hello and welcome back, everyone. This is the fourth installment in these startup basics. If you are starting a business, especially if you're doing it for the first time, this is for you. So in a previous post I did, it was called the Lean Startup or the Countant Lean Startup. It was about where I'm at in my business at the time. And one of the things that I hit on and would like to bring a lot more attention to right now is this concept of a break-even point, okay? Now, I see if you are at the point where you have an idea, a product, a service, whatever it is, and you have created a strategy, then when you get to the point of execution, this is all that should be on your mind, basically. You should be focused on getting to a break-even point as fast as possible. And this video is going to explain how to do that, and it's going to explain why you should do that. So let's start with the why. The break-even point basically means your net income is zero. So it means you're not making any money, but you're not losing any money, okay? And the reason that's so important is because wherever you're getting your initial seed money from, whether it's your own savings, a bank loan, angel investors, maybe your parents lent you some money, whatever it is, you know, even if you're just trying to bootstrap it up, you are going to have a limited runway. And sooner or later, if the company doesn't start generating its own income, you're going to dry up, right? Okay. So I shouldn't need to stress the importance anymore of getting to this point. The business needs to get to a point where it's making money, and the faster you do that, the sooner you can start to focus on a lot more fun stuff like how to make your products better and how to reach more people with them and all that, okay? So now let's talk about how to do this analysis and how it can be useful to you. There are a couple of main ways in my mind of how to look at this. And the first is a much more detailed look at how you're going to break even based on your product costs and sales and all that stuff, okay? So if you're just starting out and you're trying to figure out how you're going to make this break-even point, this is what you want to do. You want to take your product, and let's use an example. Let's say you're selling ice cream cones, okay? And that includes the ice cream. You're a shop, right? And you've got full serve cold ice cream. Let's say you sell an ice cream cone for $5, okay? And the ice cream costs you $2. The labor, let's say you can track the individual labor of the guy there scooping the ice cream, costs $1. And the cone itself costs $1 as well, all right? So that totals $4, and after you take that away from the sale price of $5, you're left with $1, okay? This $1 is what you call your contribution margin per unit, and it's very important, okay? The reason is what you've done just now is you've taken your sale price, and then you've taken into account all your variable costs. And once you take them away, that's your contribution margin, okay? Now remember, variable costs are any costs that change with your volume of units sold, okay? So that ice cream place, you know, it's gonna, however many cones you sell, you're gonna use up more cones. You're gonna use up more ice cream. It's gonna take the scooper longer to do, right? So these are costs that you can directly attribute to the, to the sales of those units, okay? Variable costs are also referred to as cost of goods sold. And in your income statement, you know, it goes revenue, cost of goods sold, and then you got gross profit right underneath that, the difference of those two, okay? So then everything else below that is fixed costs. And fixed costs are the opposite. They're costs that don't change based on the volume of units sold. A couple of just really simple examples of that are rent, utilities, you know, salaries of certain people that aren't directly related to the sales. Stuff that's not going to change no matter what, you know, how much you sell. Okay? So what you need to consider at a high level is you need to say, here are my fixed costs. No matter how much business I do, I have to cover this, right? So how many units do I need to sell to be able to do that? All right. And in our example, let's say you sell that one product and its contribution margin per unit is $1. And let's say your fixed costs are $10,000 a month. Then right there, you know, I need to sell 10,000 of these ice cream cones each month just to keep the business going. Okay. And that is extremely valuable information to have. Now, this immediately gets more and more complex as you have multiple products, and you need to start considering your product mix and what, how much of each product you're selling. Maybe the analysis of this will reveal, hey, I should focus more on product A because it's got a, larger contribution margin than product B. But that's not always the case. Sometimes investors just want to see top line growth, and in which case, even if you have a product that has a much lower contribution margin, but it sells for a lot more, then maybe you want to try to push that, right? But if you're just starting out, that's probably a good part to include in your strategy, is to say, hey, what's the quickest way I can break even? Well, if I focus on this product that has a very large contribution margin, that's going to get me there the quickest. Okay? So that's the first way of kind of looking at your break-even point. The second way is more useful, I think, if you are further along, and it's basically saying, looking at my total profit and loss for, let's say, a year. I had fixed costs, your operating costs totaling $100,000, okay? Then if your revenue was $200,000 and your contribution margin ratio, it's called at a higher level like that, is 50%, then it means you just broke even because your revenue is $200,000, right? Your variable costs were 50% of that, so that's $100,000. That takes you down to $100,000 left, and your fixed costs ate all that up. Okay, hope that makes sense. So the reason you would do this is you might be looking at an overall P&L, like I said, for a year or multiple years or over a period of months, and you might be analyzing your product mix at the same time, trying to figure out, what was selling a lot at this point and what were the effects of it on our business, on our profit. And so it can be very useful to do that way too, but you might need a little more information, a little more track record at that point, okay? So a couple of other things I just really want to stress. I guess it's just one main other thing. If you are a solo entrepreneur starting out and this business is going to be your sole source of income, you absolutely must include your salary in these fixed costs, okay? Because you're going to have personal bills to pay. You're going to have your own rent. You got to eat. You probably need an internet connection. Whatever these fixed costs are, you can, in fact, I recommend you detail these out. I think everybody should know, what their absolute necessities are. But if you detail all of them out, and even if it's a ridiculously specific number, then just put your salary at that number, and that goes into your fixed costs, and you need to cover that as well each month, okay? So I think that's about it. Maybe one more item I'd like to touch on. I mentioned in, what was it? I think it was another Startup Basics video called The 3 Necessities, I think. And, if you have your idea, you have your strategy, which hopefully takes into account this break-even point, and then you're executing, like I said, this is what you should be focused on. How do I break even the quickest? Now, it's okay to understand that somewhere in your execution phase, you may have product development, right? And that's okay if you're not making money for that period of time, if you've taken that into account. So just be sure to calculate that time in, right? And then you should just be focused on getting that MVP as fast as possible, your minimally viable product, right? So that you can get it out to the market and see if it sells, how much it sells, what needs to change and all that, okay? So again, if you're just starting out, this is a point I can't drive home hard enough. Strategize, think about how you're going to hit this break-even point where the business is not losing any money. And at that point, it's just icing on the cake. Then you can really focus on the fun stuff. All right, so let's end this with a question. If you have a business that's starting out, or even if you have a business that's doing great many years in or whatever, or you're just considering a business that you'd like to start, how are you going to break even, or what is your break even point? Calculate it. Figure it out. What is your total fixed costs, and then what is your contribution margin, either per unit or total, and then you know how much you need to sell to stay in business. All right. Hope this was useful. Look forward to the comments, questions below, and I will see you next time.